On day one of the draft, the Chargers got Justin Herbert, a brand new running back, and on day two, they got him an electric pass catcher and wide receiver Trey Harris, who should complement Ladd McConkey perfectly.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 9 seasons together, but this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers, as always, for making us your first listen, especially on this late night edition with a bonus show on a Friday night to talk about all the Chargers Day 2 draft picks. To make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. And David, Day 2 is in the books. I liked the day as a whole, but I loved the pick the Chargers took in the second round with Trey Harris, the guy that we mocked with the Chargers in the second round, and he ends up landing with them at 55. You could tell they were stoked about it, and he fits perfectly, I think, with what they needed at that position. And then adding some beef. We knew they were going to add to the interior of the defensive line. They do it in round 3. Mike Elston was ecstatic, which means I'm happy about the pick as well. And a lot of talent still left on the board going into day 3, where Joe Ortiz arguably did some of his best work in 2024. He'll need to do it again with so many more picks still left to go. I mean, they only made 3 picks so far. They still have 7 draft picks to play around with on day 3. But LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. David, you want to talk about a qualified candidate for the Chargers wide receiver job? Trey Harris definitely fits that, and he was the pick at 55. Love the pick. I understand, there's still a lot of guys there. They could have went in some different directions, but when Melvin Gordon is up there announcing that Trey Harris is the pick, I couldn't have been more thrilled, because this is a guy that was definitely one of my draft crushes that I think fell due to his 40 time, but it never really bothered me because the game speed was always so much faster than what he was able to put in the testing. But man, Trey Harris is the pick. I loved it. I know that you were a big fan of his too, and the Chargers end up finding that pass catching option for Justin Herbert in round 2 after getting him a running back in round 1.
Man, I was ecstatic with this pick. I was so happy because, hey, we were pounding the table all off season after the Houston game. Was like, please give Justin Herbert some help. Go give Ladd McConkey somebody that can take some pressure and attention away from him. And now you do that in a big way with Trey Harris. I mean, you talk about, qualified for the position. Look at the resume here. 3 years of really strong production. 935 yards, 985 yards, 1,030 yards in not even close to a complete season.
8 games? Yeah.
8 games. I mean, unbelievable value here to be able to get him in the second round. And hey, the Chargers, Jim Harbaugh, Joe Ortiz said that they even thought about trading up to get Trey Harris because they were so enamored with that pick, and we definitely are too.
Absolutely. I mean, they said, hey, the 2 teams in front of us both drafted a wide receiver in round 1, so we know as soon as it started kind of getting a little closer that we'd have a good chance at him. And I mean, realistically, if you were going to go wide receiver here, he was one of the best players available still off of my board. Obviously, Mike Green is out there who just came off a 17-sack season. I don't think they were going to touch him. And I think the rest of the NFL kind of showed you that too until the Ravens were the brave team that took him. But as far as getting a positional need, getting a guy who feels like value at that pick, I thought they did an absolutely great job. And to have him fall into their lap, to keep all of that day 3 ammunition still at your disposal and still get a guy that plays like this. So as far as what he brings to the table, you talked about the big time production. I mean, the fact that he had a 1,000-yard receiving season in 8 games in the SEC, in the cream of the crop, is insane. And I talked a little bit about just the compliment to Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey owns the middle of the field. What teams started doing to the Chargers was manning them up, going much more man-heavy against them, because the only guy who could beat it was Ladd McConkey. Quentin Johnston, one of the worst receivers in the league last year at beating man coverage. Will Dissly, I believe, was the worst, if not one of the worst tight ends in the league as far as going up against man coverage. This guy beats that. His yards per route run against man coverage last year was 11.
Jesus.
The next closest guy was in the threes. It doesn't even make sense. I mean, he led all
That's
college football
crazy.
at 5.12 yards per route run per PFF. 11 against man coverage. This is a dude who eats up man coverage, can stack defensive backs quickly when trying to get down the field, which is why he averaged 17 yards per catch over the last 2 seasons. Does a good job, of course, also decelerating. He can threaten you deep. He can also kill you on the comebacks and curl routes, which he did a ton of. But he's also pretty physical after the catch. This is a good yak guy because he's so big and he's pretty fast once he gets going. The top end speed isn't a problem in my mind. He's very hard to tackle once he gets going. There's a lot to like about what this dude's weapons are and what he brings to the table in that regard.
I agree. Also, I feel like he was a very good run blocker as well. When he was asked to do it,
When he wanted to be, he was.
Yeah,
for
when he
sure.
wanted to be, he was a quality run blocker. Felt like he snapped off his routes really well, which created a lot of separation. Ran a lot of those kind of drags and slants, and some of those comebacks. Showed some physicality after the catch on those wide receiver screens, breaking tackles. Like he did that.
Good stiff arm.
Time in, time out. Runs a really nice double move. This guy also fights for extra yards. He is very difficult to bring down. He runs through multiple defenders. Like it's something that you saw a lot. You want to try to bring this guy down? Well, it's going to have to take a couple of people to get him on the ground because he's going to fight you for it. Also, he posted 10 100-yard receiving games in 20 games played at Ole Miss, which is fourth
Crazy.
most in school history. So we're talking about a very well-rounded wide receiver, a guy that can go up and get the football, that can go fight for the ball, that can run block, that can get you yards after catch, that can track the ball over his shoulder down the football field. A very well-rounded skill set, and a guy that's going to step in and hopefully, take the place of what Joshua Palmer brought and add that much more.
When I think that, kind of inversely to that, I hope he brings to the table what Josh Palmer couldn't. I hope he brings to the table what Quentin Johnston couldn't, because what they wanted to do last year was continue to keep targeting Josh Palmer downfield, and the connection wasn't there. He wasn't able to come down with contested catches. They would target Quentin Johnston down the field, and he wasn't able to come up with those catches with tight window throws. This is a dude who got 8 of his 13 contested targets last year.
Love that.
It's not a ton of contested targets because he's a decent separator as well, especially for a guy his size. Scored over a 9 on the RAS score. Don't let the 40 time fool you. This dude is an athlete for sure. And I think that maybe freaked out some teams around the league, but it never really made sense to me. This dude fell or was even considered as low in the rankings as he was. And if you watched the show, you knew that. I've loved him throughout the process.
Yeah.
If you're talking about the cons to his game, has the size to be a dominant blocker, but you didn't see that many impact blocks. And I think that's part of the, Ole Miss offense, one of those things.
Yeah.
Missed 5 games last season due to a groin injury, missed a game in 2023 with a knee injury and had to have a minor procedure per the Beast, and had 5 drops and 2 fumbles last season. But still, a 6.4 career drop rate. We're talking about, Quentin Johnston. He came out of college with an 11.8% drop rate. So nowhere near the kind of drop issues that we had to kind of deal with Quentin Johnston. This dude has incredible hands, and that's not as much of a worry for me going forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think you pretty much covered it as far as the cons are concerned. I had everything written down the same exact way. The only other thing was probably just more build-up speed than immediate, acceleration off the line of scrimmage.
Sure.
Is probably the only other thing that I might add to that. But
Yeah.
again, it's not really a concern for me because of his ability to create separation in man-to-man coverage, which is exactly what the Chargers struggled with a lot last year if your name was not Ladd McConkey. And with a quarterback like Justin Herbert, you got to trust that he's going to be able to get the ball to you, and now he's going to be able to get the ball to his newest weapon, Trey Harris.
And it just fits what the Chargers have really well. With what the Chargers have and, Quentin Johnston and Ladd McConkey, he brings a different skill set than those guys do. Did play in a little bit of a gimmicky offense, didn't get a chance to really show the full route tree because of the offense they ran. And I'd add another, con, I guess, would be coming into the league as an older player at 23 years old. I think the nice thing here is you've seen the production since he was basically a 21-year-old. So I don't think those are really big-time concerns. I think the injuries and the lack of the top-end speed, or at least the 40 time where it made him drop. But this dude is a legitimate deep threat and one of the best deep threats in this class, even with that 40 time. So it doesn't bother me very much. I think this is a real big, physical, outside receiver that can pair with Ladd McConkey for at least the next 4 years. And I absolutely love the fit, and I love the fact that the Chargers saw it too and decided to take him with their second-round pick. They went a little off the board with their 3rd round pick, a little higher than the consensus, maybe a little bit of a reach. But when you saw the reaction in that Chargers war room, and specifically Mike Elston's reaction, it made me want to jump on board. So we're going to talk about the new beef added to the defensive line, Jamari Caldwell, the guy the Chargers took in the 3rd round, and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, I need to tell you guys about LinkedIn Jobs, because as a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. And that's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in, because when you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free and share it with your network and get qualified candidates all in one place. LinkedIn's new feature can also help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn helped them find a high quality hire. And that is always what LinkedIn brings to the table, finding the right fit for your small business, so you're not trying to fill that role only a couple months later. Find the right candidate and post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, David, well, we absolutely were enamored with the pick in round 2 at 55 overall, getting Justin Herbert some more firepower offensively and just going back to back, getting 2 impact players for your offense in the first 2 rounds. We knew the defensive swing was coming, right? I mean, even in the video I put out, it's like, it feels like the attention's about to start shifting big time to the defensive side of things. And the Chargers, maybe unsurprisingly, the position they went with was the interior of the defensive line. They end up going with Jamari Caldwell, the interior defensive lineman from Oregon, the guy who was kind of in the shadow of a guy we were really, enamored with Derek Harmon. Obviously, it's a crazy story too, with him getting drafted and his mom passing away. Definitely thinking about his family, even if he's not a Charger. But this guy wasn't really in the limelight and is kind of a bounce back candidate after what he was able to do in 2023 before transferring to a bigger program in Oregon. But David, I mean, the reaction for me was at least, okay, that there was guys available. This is the guy the Chargers handpicked in the 3rd round, and they seem pretty ecstatic about it.
Yeah, they really do. And also, I think with Jamari Caldwell himself is a really cool story. I mean, this is a guy who decided that he just didn't want to play football anymore. He just didn't have it in him, and he took a whole year off and then decided, wait, I still love football. I want to get back into it. And so he went the hard route. He went to Independence, Kansas Community College, and parlayed that opportunity playing well into his chance to play at Houston, where he was able to have some more big-time production and then eventually found his way at, one of the bigger schools in Oregon.
Yeah, and I mean, playing in, big-time games. This was someone that Dane Brugler had a 4th round grade on. Consensus rank was 111th. The Chargers took him at 86. It is a bit of a reach, but there were other guys the Chargers passed up on, and chose him over. There's definitely something that they see in him, and when we watched it, I could see it too. The flashes are definitely in there, and for a 3rd round pick, if you have somebody that's flashing, not just as a guy who can come in and make an immediate impact for you as a run defender, but also someone that has that pass rush pedigree that he's actually shown in the past, I understand it. Now, there's guys like, edge rusher Jack Sawyer still available, who's still now available, Josiah Stewart, who is from Michigan. I was a little surprised the Chargers passed up on him there, because we know they have a big need at edge rusher as well. Other defensive tackles like Jordan Phillips and Joshua Farmer. Giving Mike Elston the guy he wants, I'm going to get on board with. If they think they can get more out of this dude and they're kind of blown away by him, I'm willing to give them that chance, especially with what they did at Poona Ford. This is the guy you're trying to get to help you replace some of that Poona Ford production. And David called himself a dancing bear. We use that a lot as far as, big guys who can move. Not many big guys move the way Jamari Caldwell does at, 6'2", 330 pounds. That part definitely stood out right away.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness, this guy has incredibly nimble feet for a man that is gigantic. I mean, you really just don't see his ability to really kind of just move at that size. I thought that he was pretty disruptive using that quickness when he was able to kind of get off the line of scrimmage. That's something that he was able to, really be able to penetrate. Also, he had some really good strength as well. He was able to, keep up and take on those double teams and be able to kind of free things up for the linebackers. Because, hey, playing the defensive line, especially at the nose tackle position, it's an unglamorous position. It's going to be one of those where you're not going to get all the sexy stat numbers that, your edge rushers are going to get, but you have an essential job to do. If you're able to take on those blocks, free up those linebackers to make those tackles, you're playing complementary team defense. And I think this is a move in order to do that. But also, he has some pass rush pedigree as well. He had a 6.5 sack season in 2023. And, one of the stats that I saw Chris Room of ESPN bring up is he had 17 QB pressures last season, which was tied for 6th most in the Big Ten among defensive tackles. So, not really getting home at Oregon. I don't believe he had any sacks, but he was able to affect the quarterback and get pressure on him, which, as we know, is still very important.
Well, it's funny because, in free agency, with the Chargers, you always see them trying these, bounce back candidates. And they're a team that values multiple seasons of your college football tape, which I think is important. Now, it is kind of risky, right? They're taking some risk by taking Jamari Caldwell there. But in the 3rd round, everybody's kind of risky. You're betting on traits. You're betting on what your projection is of them. And I think when you see that 6.5 sack season, which, Walter Nolan, out of all the big-time defensive tackles, had the most sacks in this class with 6.5, that's something. That's meaningful, right? Even if he had 0 sacks, which will be the biggest con we're going to have for this guy in 2024. You can see it, though. You see the knockback power that he possesses. Yeah. I think you also saw the toughness in 2023. Dane Brugler noted in this. He had that 6.5 sack season. In the first game of 2023, he hurt and broke his left hand and had to play the entire rest of the season with a cast on his hand, and still found a way to get 6.5 sacks. So I think that kind of helps as far as, hey, the tackling ability, the finishing ability is somewhere in there. And I think, another kind of interesting point that Dane Brugler made was he did block 2 field goals as well at Houston.
That's really cool.
That is really cool. And it's something, I can't remember the Chargers the last time they blocked a field goal. It's been a little while, but that is where you have to start the cons. No one's going to be excited about a dude who had 0 sacks in 2024. Even if I tell you, hey, the flashes are there. He has a chance to be an impact run defender and be a space eater for you right away. And the pass rush upside is there. 0 sacks in 2024 is pretty, it's inexcusable to a certain extent. Like, there's no excuse to not have a sack. He has to be able to finish better. And the Chargers are showing you, with that, the big length, right? He does have big, long arms, especially for his height. They think it's in there. Admitted to, according to Dane Brugler, that he had to play in better shape as well. And I think you can see that. Sloppy weight as a term I've seen kind of thrown around there. This feels like a Mike Elston and Ben Herbert project. Here's a dude who has twitchiness for his size for sure, has quickness for his size, has power, right? But you need to kind of refine it, and there's even more to kind of tap into there. But I think those were a couple of the biggest cons that I found.
Yeah, for sure. He's going to have to get a body by Herbert, right? That's one of the things that he needs to work on. Just getting that weight to work and function more in the way that they need it to. And hey, there's nobody better in the planet, in my opinion, to be able to get that done than Ben Herbert. And of course, that state-of-the-art facility at the Bolt to be able to get what they need to get done. I would say also, he gets put on the ground a little bit too much for me. I think that's something that he needs to work on. And also, like, he's got to deepen the pass rush repertoire. He's got to have more of a plan. If his first initial thing fails, you got to be able to go to something else and put some of these things together. Fortunately, hey, he's got a couple of good edge rushers in there to be able to teach him some moves, to be able to put together a better plan of attack when it comes getting after the quarterback. And you never like to see any defensive player, that's partially, responsible for getting after the quarterback, not have any sacks. But I do feel like I understand what he's going to be able to bring. I think he's probably going to be more of a rotational piece at first, a guy that's going to be able to eat up double teams and hopefully has some pass rush upside that they can unlock.
And it's in there. The pass rush upside is in there. It's, can the Chargers bring it out, right? Can they get him to lock in? If they can get him to lock in and give the consistent effort and keep that energy, but control it and kind of direct it in the right direction, like, there's something here. He could be a steal of a 3rd round pick. Now, he could also totally flame out. That's the kind of risk you take with someone like Jamari Caldwell, and that's why it's not going to be a universally lauded pick, but I see the vision. I see what they see in him Because if you can get him to hone in on what he does really well, and there's several things that you cannot teach that he does really well, this could be a player for you for a long time. As far as other cons, that frenetic energy that he plays with, it's a good motor, and it definitely gives him some pros, but it also has some cons. Yeah. Getting himself out of rushing lanes, getting the gap integrity has to be a lot better at the NFL level, especially in a defense that really relies on discipline, and like Jesse Minters does. Get stuck on blocks too long at times, especially for someone that has such long arms. Got to be able to disengage, even if he's always looking for the ball carrier. Has to do a better job of disengaging and being able to get those finishing plays, be able to find those tackles for loss, those sacks. If they can do that, the Chargers might have got a really good player in round 3. But I think the biggest thing when I was looking at day 3 of the draft was a lot of talent still available, and a lot of talent still available at positions the Chargers have big needs at, and they still have a full repertoire, as David would say, of 6th-round picks that they can use to go get one of them if the right guy falls. So we're going to talk about all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes it super easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props to make my bets, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props, and also after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. And I know we're talking about the playoffs. You can bet on the NFL draft still right now. And the biggest question that's still happening, is happening in this draft right now is, where will Shedeur Sanders go? You can bet on it with FanDuel. Right now, the Steelers are the favorites at plus 250, followed by the Cowboys and Jets, who are tied at plus 600. If the Raiders wanted to take him, you feel like they would have taken him when they had back-to-back picks in the 3rd round. It's very interesting, and you can bet on it with FanDuel, who has the best ways to bet on everything. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. David, now it's on to day 3, where Joe Ortiz hit it out of the park last year, finding 2 5th-round picks in Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still to come in and be impact players for them, and guys that feel like foundational parts of the defense going forward in only their 2nd season. The development didn't take very long. They're going to get a lot out of those contracts, it seems like. But now they have even more ammunition than they had last year. Last year, they did have 2 5th-round picks, but we're talking about 7 picks the Chargers are going to potentially make here, David, on day 3. And I think one of the things that stood out to me when I was looking at, okay, where do you go next? What are the biggest needs? There's still a lot of guys available at positional needs for the Chargers, including edge rusher, David. I mean, I think edge rusher and tight end, right? I mean, it's really the same. Like, it's the 3 that we've been pounding on. We wanted to get a pass catcher and help on the defensive front on day 2. Check. The Chargers did that. Yeah. Now you have to find more steals in the draft at other big positional needs: edge rusher, tight end, and protection for Justin Herbert.
Absolutely agree. I think one of the names that already was brought up by you that is available still miraculously is Jack Sawyer, the defensive end. He big guy, 6'4", 260 pounds, has that prototypical size, and
Ohio
has
State.
some really good production. Yeah, out of Ohio State, 6.5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss in 2023, including 2 forced fumbles. And last year had 9 sacks and 9 tackles for loss and an interception in 2024, with 3 forced fumbles and 11 passes defensed in his collegiate career. If he wasn't getting after the quarterback and getting him on the ground, he was getting his hands up and knocking those passes down. We know how frustrating it is for a quarterback when you're able to get the ball and get that football on the ground and disrupt the play. So Jack Sawyer still available. If he's the pick, I think I would be pretty ecstatic if they're able to grab him. Probably going to have to get him with the next pick though, probably 4th round.
Yeah, I mean, he has a second round grade, and I just combined it. 2nd round grade from Dane Brugler, one of the bigger surprise falls. I mean, there's nobody talking about surprise falls right now, and not talking about Shedeur Sanders, but Jack Sawyer would definitely be on that list. I think that Dane Brugler's higher on him than some are, right? But he's a guy that I think, 32-ish inch arms. I think that's definitely holding him back. A little bit more of a stiff athlete, according to Dane Brugler. That might be holding him back. But to land him in round 4, even if you want to trade up to go get him, feels like it would be a big win. Another guy I would bring up, Braden Swinson, the edge rusher from LSU, has dropped now to round 4. We're talking about a guy that we didn't think would be available, a 3rd round graded guy by Dane Brugler, who had 8.5 sacks at LSU last year. After transferring the last couple of years, has still been productive in the SEC. Someone to keep an eye on if the Chargers decide to go edge rusher. Now, tight end, David, still some other names. If you're talking about looking kind of for specific traits now and looking at kind of traitsy guys, knowing you're not going to get the full package, if the Chargers want to go later with it, Syracuse's Aronde Gadsden is a guy, hot name as far as just a receiving option. 4th in 20-plus yard catches last year with 16. 2nd in contested catches. This dude had 17 contested catches in 2024 alone. And also, the Notre Dame tight end. I know Daniel Popper is really high on him, used him in one of his mock drafts. Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame, a vertical threat at tight end. Also has some chops to be an inline blocker as well and shows some of that. Those are a couple guys that pop out, David, to me, where it's like, hey, the tight ends are still there. If the Chargers, now that they have Tyler Conklin and Will Dissly and don't need that immediate production potentially, they could have a chance to still get a guy on day 3.
I agree. I think another tight end that comes to mind for me is Gunnar Helm, the tight end from Texas. 6'5", 240 pounds, 250 pounds, depending on where you look. A guy who had some real legitimate production last year. 60
Big
receptions, 786 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns, and went for 13.1 yards per reception. I mean, that's big play production. The only downside is it was really only 1 year of major big time production in his collegiate career. But, you know, a guy that's a kind of really of a crafty route runner and a guy who has some ability to go up and get the football and you know, be a threat on those jump ball situations. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad pick, a guy that's still available and kind of fits the profile of tight end that you're kind of looking to add to your tight end room. And then, hey, protection wise, I know a pretty popular name still out there from LSU is the guard, you know, slash tackle Miles Frazier. I mean, a guy who was a 4-year starter, played primarily at right guard, but, you know, this guy played 13 plus games every single season he was in college football. We know that there every day is one of the mantras that the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, they live by. And, you know, this is a guy also, I think one of the notes that Steve Munch was able to provide that I really liked. He easily picks up line stunts and blitzes, which is music to my ears after watching the Chargers' interior of their offensive line struggle to handle the stunts and twists so much last season.
Yeah, and for me, if the Chargers want to trade up to go get that guy, we'll talk about just them still having kind of all that ammunition if they want to use it. I'd understand it, because after him and Marcus Mbo, I don't know how to say his last name, that's the 5th and 6th rated guards in this class, according to Dane Brugler, are still available. It's a big drop-off after those two guys. If you want to try to get legitimate competition for the left guard starting spot, go and get a Miles Frazier in round 4 if you can, and if you think he's the right fit. A little bit limited athletically, but I think those cons are kind of covered up a little bit in the scheme that he'd be going to with the Chargers. Greg Roman does like to pull guys, and that can be one of his cons, is, you know, long pulls, not being able to get to those spots. But as far as someone who can move guys off the line of scrimmage and is solid in pass protection and can compete for the starting job at left guard day one, I really like Miles Frazier.
Positions too, and could probably be a swing tackle if you know.
Yeah, I don't know. Pretty much everyone thinks he's going to be a guard at the next level. A lot of tackles that really only project as guards, and I think he kind of fits into that category. I wouldn't need him to be a tackle. I need him to be competition at left guard. You have Trey Pipkins, you have Jamari Sawyer, you have guys who have done both.
Well, you just know the Chargers value that versatility.
Of course, but get someone that can be a left guard for you. Don't play Andre James at left guard. Don't play Trey Pipkins at left guard. Don't play Bradley Bozeman at left guard. Get someone else that could potentially start there, and that's what I'm looking for. And I think to see Miles Frazier still available going into day 3,
crazy.
I think that's a win for you, and I think he would be one of those guys I wouldn't mind trading up for if they wanted to do that. Which I think is the next thing here, David, is the Chargers have kept all 4 of their 6th-round picks. There's still a chance they could use all 4 of their 6th-round picks, but now that they've filled some big needs and some of those really good guys are still available and potentially will start going quickly in round 4, you have all that ammunition if you want to move up.
Absolutely, and they should be looking to do it, in my opinion. I still feel like even now they are not going to be taking 4 players in the 6th round. I just can't. I refuse to believe it. I can easily see them in the 4th, maybe in the 5th, you know, using 1, maybe 2 of those 6th-round picks to be able to move up, to see a guy that's still available, that they covet, that they absolutely have to have, and make a move to go get that player and get that deal done. I just feel like that's the reason why they've been able to do that. And hey, maybe if they don't get a tight end, or if they don't get a player, then maybe they can swing a deal and go grab an established tight end. Maybe that's the route that they want to take. So they have some options, but allowing them, having those 4th, 6th round picks allows them to kind of move how they want to move.
We didn't get a tight end in round 4 or 5. Here's 2 6th round picks for Mark Andrews.
There we go.
Very much. So yeah, they have that available. It's something we've talked about throughout the process, then potentially trading for someone during the draft. Maybe if they don't get a guy in 4 and 5 and all the guys that they like at maybe a position they think is a big need aren't available to them, I think it's less likely, especially with the Tyler Conklin addition. Feels like they're not really panicking at that, and they should have an improved tight end room pretty much no matter what going into 2025. At the same time, I don't think trading back really makes any sense at all for where they are. Unless you're getting, future value in 2026 or something, and somebody wants to give you a higher pick then. But they have 4 6th round picks. You have 1 pick in each of the 4th or the 5th round. If anything, I'm trying to maybe get back into the 5th round, potentially with a couple of 6th round picks, if that's at all possible. Maybe trading up from the 5th round back into the 4th round with one of those 6th round picks, I think would be possible. But trading back and getting more late day 3 picks is not something I'm interested in at all. You have plenty of them. You're hoping all of the guys that you have right now can go up and make the roster. If you want to package one of those together, go higher up in the 4th round, trade back into the 4th round, or maybe back into the 5th round. Count me all the way in, because as we've seen with the lack of consensus in this draft, some really good players are falling, and the Chargers seem to be very happy with the ones they've landed so far. There's still work to do, and I'll tell you this, if the Chargers can, hit on round 1 and 2 this year, hit on a couple of day 3 picks, they're going to be in business, and they could take a legitimate step toward actual contention in 2025. So super excited. It's so fun to have a general manager that you trust on day 3 and have day 3 picks you can get legitimately excited about. And Joe Ortiz has earned a lot of trust. And I'm going to be looking very closely at these guys who he takes, because one of them could be a true diamond in the rough. And make sure you're back here on Monday when we talk about all of them, all 7 of them, all 7 of these day 3 picks that we're going to see tomorrow. We will be back with you guys on Monday to talk about it. Maybe we'll go live show on Sunday night. We haven't decided it yet, but we will be back with you guys with all the rest of the picks. Pick-a-mania on Monday as we go through and watch, film on 4 6th rounders and a 7th rounder as well. And if you want to be, send us some clips of guys, we'll take that too. But it's going to be a lot of fun. We're really excited to see what happens on day 3 of the draft, especially with Joe Ortiz's success there so far. But thank you guys for joining us, especially late at night, because I have a baby and we always want to watch film on the guys, and we hadn't got a chance to watch Jamari Caldwell yet. So thank you guys for waiting. Thank you guys for being here. We appreciate the everydayers. We think we have the best fans out there. To make sure you don't miss the show on Sunday night or Monday with the rest of the day 3 picks, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcasts from, as well as finding the show every day on all of our social media. You can find us on Twitter at Locked On LAC, on Instagram at Locked On Chargers, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. But very happy with how this draft has gone so far. Very happy with the picks so far. Excited to see what the Chargers can do on day 3, and we'll see who these diamonds in the rough are. But make sure you guys are back here with us on Monday. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.